All right, in this video, I want to talk about the birth rate and why not as many people my age are having kids. So, you've probably heard all the arguments over the recent years, overpopulation concerns, climate change concerns, financial cost, being able to provide a good life, etc. But what I think is really pushing people away from having kids, aside from the fact that they're no longer an asset, like in this one video I watched that pointed out how families with a large number of kids could have them work the farm and do that. Whereas today you have all kinds of requirements and such for things you gotta do, and obviously child labor isn't a thing anymore. Which actually brings me to the new thing I have to say about this that I was talking about with one of my friends when he brought that up. Liabilities. Yeah, that's right. There are a lot more liabilities with having kids today versus back in the day. So I've watched videos from Jessica Kent. For those of you who don't know, she did time in prison and told some very horrifying stories about what happened in there that has actually made me genuinely terrified of the idea of being in prison. But we'll discuss that at another day. Right now, the focus is on having kids and the liabilities that they bring about. So, in the case of Jessica Kent, she was in with a mother who was arrested and was in there for being drunk and then accidentally suffocating her child. Now, in Jessica's video, she pointed out that the rest of the inmates didn't feel like she belonged there, but Jessica said she belonged there because she was responsible for that child, and that negligence led to that. And it's not even really horrible things like that. It's simple things like you can't just let them play outside until the streetlights come on, like they did back in my parents' day, because there are numerous stories out there about parents who get arrested for simply letting their kids go out somewhere on their own. Now, obviously, like a 5 or 6 year old, not a great idea to send them out there. Me personally, I was like 8, 9, or 10. I was allowed to go out and ride bikes with my friends at the time. It also helped that playgrounds and parks and such weren't too far away from where I live. Sorry, I'm trying not to give away too many specifics about where I live so that you can narrow it down. But at like 11 or 12 years old, I was roaming around the neighborhood and on my bicycle with my friends at the time. And this was in 2008, 2009. Not too dissimilar from the way that you see the Stranger Things kids hang out and ride their bikes around with each other in the first season of that show. But yeah, maybe that was the tail end of it, or maybe it was just a lot more. Maybe that was before it became as strict as it is now. Yeah, that's one of the more innocent versions of that. If you want something really grim for that, consider the Michigan school. Uh, what's the YouTube appropriate word for this? Okay, I have a better way to describe it. The perpetrator of violence at a school in Michigan in the last 2 years or so. I don't remember the exact date, but the perpetrator's parents were held criminally liable for the crimes committed by their child. Yeah, I'm pretty sure both of them are in prison right now for bad parenting. Now, you can argue those parents should have done better. I completely agree they should have done better. They should have been more involved in the kid's life so that the kid didn't do that, or if they tried, it would be stopped a lot more quickly. But yeah, I think you get the idea. Just in the last month or two, I saw a clip from Matt Walsh's YouTube channel about this mother in Tennessee, I think it was, who got arrested for letting a 10-year-old kid go to the park on his own. Yeah, as recently as 16 years ago, I don't think that was a huge deal. Now, obviously, there have been horror stories over the years about things like that, about bad things happening without the parents around. And it's fair to say that they should at least know where their kids are. Like the old news thing said, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? Yeah, and getting outside of that, there's also a lot of strict child CPS rules or requirements by social workers for divorced parents in terms of their housing situation for letting their kids stay there. Mrs. Doubtfire, this was back in 1993, by the way, so this was a lot stricter. So they were obviously a lot stricter by then. You know, I gotta look at ask ChatGPT how realistic that particular line of dialogue is. But really quick, to before I go ask ChatGPT, I just want to establish that in the movie, Robin Williams's character was told that he had to have an individual bed for each child by the social worker who was inspecting his apartment after he'd recently moved out because of the divorce. And I can tell you right now, if someone found out about that in the Malcolm in the Middle situation, where two of the brothers always had to share a bed at some point, most of the show was Malcolm and Dewey. Yeah, Malcolm and Dewey, and Reese had his own bed. I'm gonna go ask ChatGPT really quick if how realistic that particular bit from Mrs. Doubtfire is. All right, ChatGPT just told me that there's no one-to-one ratio requirement when it comes to the number of beds for heads and the number of kids, but so I guess in Malcolm in the Middle, well, the family wouldn't have gotten in trouble for making Malcolm and Dewey share a bed. Heck, I'm starting to think that based on what it said, the entire the whole room arrangement might not be as against welfare regulations as one might think. But yeah, space requirements and such are also a consideration because I read this article from Not the Bee some time ago, back in August. That's when it was published. I remember because I tracked it down to send to my friend about written by this woman who wrote about how her father was one of 10. I have a feeling that the situation the article described would not be legally permissible today. So, the article's author's father was one of 10 kids who were raised in a two-bedroom home. So, the parents slept in one room, and then the girls slept in the other room, while the boys had to either camp out in the out in the porch during fair weather or somewhere inside the house during the colder seasons. Now, back then, which would probably be around the time of the Great Depression, I'm gonna assume, because I don't know how old the author is. I don't know how old her kids are, so I can't really deduce when it took place, but I can tell you right now, child welfare would not be happy about that. CPS would come in and separate that home in a heartbeat. Yeah, you've got minimum standards that are rightfully there, I'd like to add. Like, for example, I had to share a room with my brother until I was 21, while my sister had her own room, and all three of us each had our own bed. So it doesn't have to be a perfect situation, but based on what the Not the Bee author had to say about what she described about her father's living situation growing up, yeah, I can tell you right now that would not fly today. And there's also so much more that you have to think about. Like with cars, you have to have a car seat. You have to have the right kind of car seat. You have to position it the right way. Now, obviously, those standards are there for a good reason, and it is good practice. But the big bag of items you have to bring to take care of your child, which I heard about in a YouTube video from Diary of the Child Free, can be quite burdensome. So yeah, I'd say the liabilities thing that I brought up, whether it be with the criminal liabilities the parents of that school violence perpetrator faced, or the mom who got arrested for letting her 10-year-old go to the park on his own. Very recently, I'd like to add. That's probably exactly why a lot of people don't want to have kids today. In addition to the cost of it being a consideration, the author of the Not the Bee article pointed out how that wasn't really thought of as the that wasn't really thought of back when her dad was being raised because it was just what you did. That being said, you know about the liabilities and you don't want to face that kind of liability because of that. That's ultimately why. And it ties back to the economic reasons. And then there's the whole feeling like the world's going to be a good place to raise a kid. Now, it's never going to be perfect, but the way I see it, you do what you want. You want to go ahead and try raising a kid? I'm not going to try and stop you. Both of my cousins on my dad's side have kids now, and I said, hey, I'm happy for them. I really am. If you don't want to have kids until you reach a certain place with financial stability, or you want to see if the world will be a better place, more power to you. And if you happen to run out of the biological clock, adoption's always an option. And if you don't want to have kids, period, like me, because I think about all these liabilities and such, and I wonder, I'm like, yeah, it's not for me, but I'm not going to berate anyone who wants to have kids. Heck, I'll even step in to help with Christmas presents and such for the kids of family members like my cousins on my dad's side. So on that note, I'm going to leave it here for the video. If you made it to the end, be sure to give it a like. Comment what you think about why people aren't having kids, whether you think my liabilities, my analysis of it through the lens of liabilities that are faced makes sense or not. Subscribe for more videos like these. I'm going to try going daily because I heard that YouTube favors daily uploads. So, yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.